feminist movement is a criminal hate movement, and many people don't understand or underestimate just how criminal and vile the feminist movement really is. Even some people in men's rights spaces or in the mainstream men's rights movement. And today I want to just add to the knowledge on that subject that City Crusher has touched upon with his video on Germaine Greer and her, her darker tendencies, so to speak. And I will show you that these darker tendencies are a general pattern in the feminist movement. The feminist movement is full of people who either historically have advocated for pedophilia or have engaged in that conduct. Okay? And you can even see in City Crusher's video where a quote by Germaine Greer is seen from one of her books that she has written, right? Let me read you this quote. Quote, "If there's an element of child abuse in the woman's seduction of the boy, it is that no love he ever experienced afterward could match either the comfort or the intensity of this relationship in which the boy was never in control, but so quick to regain his erection that it didn't matter." End quote. So she was clearly advocating pedophilia here in her book, right? That is obvious. And let me just speak some more on Germaine Greer and her influence, right? So this is from Wikipedia. Germaine Greer is an Australian writer and public intellectual regarded as one of the major voices of the radical feminist movement in the latter half of the 20th century. And also interesting to note is this passage where it says, "Her goal is not equality with men." And the book from which this quote that I read you is originated comes from the book The Boy, a book of art history, The Boy, published in 2003 in the United States as The Beautiful Boy, was illustrated with 200 photographs of what the Observer called, quote, "surulent teenage male beauty," end quote. So there were even inappropriate pictures in that book. Greer described the book as an attempt to address modern women's apparent indifference to the teenage boy as a sexual object and to advance women's reclamation of their capacity for and the right to visual pleasure, end quote. So she was clearly sexualizing minors in that book, and it was even characterized by some writers as pedophilic in nature. And the cover of that book, the cover photograph by David Bailey, was of 15-year-old Björn Andersen in his character of Tadzio in the film Death in the Venice. The actor complained about Greer's use of the photograph. Okay. Now apparently Greer also has whitewashed child marriage. She said, quote, "It is not expected that little girl will be subject to sexual intercourse," end quote. Writer and feminist Germaine Greer slammed by Q&A viewers for controversial views on child brides. The author raised eyebrows when she joined the ABC program on Monday. Quote, "You're assuming that in child marriages there will be sexual intercourse, end quote, she said. Ms. Greer said child brides in India do not have sex until they are deemed ready. Viewers took to social medias to slam the feminist and asked her not to return. So apparently she also whitewashed child marriage and tried to make it seem like it's a harmless thing, right? Where supposedly no abuse is being conducted. Then we have a very influential figure in the feminist movement, Simone de Beauvoir, was an existential philosopher and feminist activist and theorist, right? Now here it gets interesting. She apparently was also a teacher, right? And a student was exploited by her, a 17-year-old pupil in 1939, and that student's parents laid formal charges against Beauvoir for debauching a minor, and she also had her license to teach revoked, but then it was reinstated. In 1977, Beauvoir signed a petition seeking to completely remove the age of consent in France. She, along with other French intellectuals, supported the freeing of free arrested pedophiles. The petition also explicitly addresses the Affaire de Versailles, where 3 adult men had sexual intercourse with minors from both genders. So not only was she herself engaging in sexual conduct with a minor, not only was she signing a petition to completely remove the age of consent in France, but she also supported, along with other French intellectuals, that arrested pedophiles were freed. Now, next to the article, Michel Foucault and other progressive intellectual heroes were pedophiles. Now, progressive intellectual heroes is to be seen in huge air quotes. Michel Foucault is perhaps the most popular intellectual in the halls of academia. As the most cited researcher, his thoughts heavily influenced most of the ideas that are taught to our college students today. When we hear that academia leans highly to the left, what this means is that the institutions of higher learning are dominated by thinkers like Foucault. Well, what is meant is the humanities mainly, right? The social science. Because Foucault was a feminist sociologist and philosopher. Recently, a personal friend of Foucault came forth with accusations about how Foucault used to engage in pedophilic sex tourism with young boys in Tunisia. He recalls how Foucault used to bribe young desperate children in poverty with money in exchange for sex at a cemetery. As sordid as this accusation was, it's hard to say it was actually shocking. Those who are familiar with Foucault's intellectual history would have been aware that Foucault actively endorsed the legitimization of pedophilia. Among the most glaring clues for this was when he led the 1977 petition to lower the legal age of consent for sex with children. And like I said before, Foucault is a very influential, a very great influence on the feminist movement, on feminist philosophy. Naturally, the promotion of pedophilia is one of the political tools they use to push society into the acceptance of, quote, non-normative sexuality, unquote, when normative sexuality is seen as the outcome of, quote unquote, oppressive patriarchal hegemony. So there you can see the feminist framing, right? Oppressive patriarchal hegemony, right? Then the sanctity of childhood innocence is nothing more than another social construct that has to be dismantled. Yet another reason why I'm against social constructivism, because you can basically justify every bullshit with social construct theory. According to an article written by a women's rights activist with extensive expertise on the subject, the promotion of pedophilia is encouraged because, quote, transgression of norms, and in particular sexual norms, became the only response to punishment and classification which would, in Foucauldian thinking, challenge oppression and power, end quote. Heavily influenced by the works of Foucault, Judith Butler also promoted the legitimacy and legality of intergenerational sex. The term intergenerational sex is basically academic jargon for adults being able to have sex with children. In defense of this proposal, Butler cited Foucault's work on the subject. Yeah, and Butler is also a very influential feminist thinker who also said stuff like gender is a social construct. And Foucault's writings, particularly the history of sexuality, have also been very influential in feminist philosophy and queer theory, particularly the work of the major feminist scholar Judith Butler due to his theories regarding the genealogy of maleness and femaleness, power, sexuality, and bodies. So another source that shows you that Foucault is very influential among feminists. He is another feminist activist, Patrick Califia, is an American writer of nonfiction essays about sexuality and erotic fiction and poetry. Califia is a member of the third wave feminism movement. In 1992, Califia founded the Letter Woman's Quarterly Venus in Verse and published Feminism, Pedophilia, and Children's Rights in a special women's issue of the pro-pedophile scholarly journal Paideia. There was actually a pro-pedophile scholarly journal that had women's issues. Wow. Wow, this just shows you how corrupted academia really is because of feminism. Califia has asserted that he supports Paideia and enjoyed working with the editors of this special issue. Califia has asserted that all age of consent laws should be repealed, describing pedophilia as quote-unquote erotic initiation. In Public Sex, the Culture of Radical Sex, Califia criticized anti-child abuse / anti-child pornography laws because they are applied disproportionately to gay men, condemning that he, quote unquote, knew several gay men who proudly called themselves boy lovers, and criticized federal laws against child abuse imagery because they would have guaranteed that it would disappear from the shelves of adult bookstores. End quote. Blah, this is disgusting beyond belief. I cannot even read this shit without throwing up. Almost, right? This is absolutely horrendous, right? Why is this individual not behind bars? Actually, Khalifa additionally supported the pedophilia advocacy organization North American Man/Boy Love Association. So as you can see, there are feminists who support a pro-pedophile organization and who write for pro-pedophile so-called scholarly journals. This is disgusting. Then we have Camille Paglia. She's an American feminist, academic, and social critic. And she's been a professor at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. Though Paglia admires Simone de Beauvoir and her book The Second Sex, which she describes as supreme work of modern feminism, its deep learning and massive argument are unsurpassed, end quote. And she also admires Germaine Greer. So all this nonsense that Camille Paglia is some major critic of feminism is just white noise. It is a facade, right? Because some people think because she was interviewed by Jordan Peterson that makes her a major feminist critic, but it seems that she seems to be in line with people like Simone de Beauvoir and Germaine Greer, more the old school feminism types, basically. Now here it gets interesting, and here's another pedophilic connection with feminism. In 1993, Paglia signed a manifesto supporting NAMBLA, a pederasty and pedophilia advocacy organization. In 1994, Paglia supported lowering the legal age of consent to 14. She noted in a 1995 interview with pro-pedophile activist Bill Andretti, quote, "I fail to see what is wrong with erotic fondling with any age," end quote. In 1997 Saloon column, Paglia expressed the view that male pedophilia correlates with heights of a civilization, stating, quote, "I have repeatedly protested the lynch mob hysteria that dogs the issue of man-boy love. In Sexual Personae, she argued that male pedophilia is intrinsically intertwined with the cardinal moments of Western civilization, end quote. And this is not even all of it. Listen to this. Paglia noted in several interviews, as well as Sexual Personae, that she supports the legalization of certain forms of child pornography. Disgusting. Disgusting. Now, supposedly she later changed her views on the matter, and she said so in an interview that she conducted in 2018. But this is like very, very recent that she changed her mind, right? All these years she had that stance. Wow, this is disgusting beyond belief. Now here's the case of Michelle Elliott. Michelle Elliott is an author, psychologist, teacher, and the founder and creator of child protection charity Kidscape. She has chaired World Health Organization and Home Office working groups, and she was writing about female predators, female sexual child abusers, and when she wrote and published a book on female sexual abuse of children, and when she basically exposed that issue to the wider public, that resulted in hostility from feminists. And there was even an instance where she got hate mails, a barrage of hate mails from feminists after she published her book. So this is feminists in action, actually trying to cover up the issue of female sexual abuse of children, right? So feminists, they always want to frame men as these pedophiles and these abusers of women and children. But when someone tries to expose female predators, they try to go against that and try to silence these people that expose these truths. Now, here's probably one of the darkest periods in post-World War II German history, right? Let me read you from this article. Inside the secret experiment that purposely left orphaned children with pedophiles. Helmut Kentler, the man behind the project, was noted psychologist whose work was often called an open call for pedophilia. The discussion of pedophilia in politics has had a strange history in Germany. The country's Green Party is now mainly associated with environmentalist policies, but there's an ugly chapter in its history that has recently been brought back into the spotlight. The Greens were founded back in the 1980s in response to the placement of US nuclear weapons on West German soil. This new political party was comprised of several different groups who opposed nuclear energy, including pacifists, feminists, environmentalists, and unfortunately pedophiles. Now you need to understand the Green Party is extremely feminist, right? Women inside the party have a special veto right, okay? So the Green Party is very feminist. But yeah, let's read on. It's hard to imagine a pro-pedophilia party gaining any kind of traction in mainstream politics today, but in the 1980s there was a faction of the Green Party that actively sought to legalize sex with children as long as there was no coercion or violence involved. Party archives have revealed pamphlets and memos depicting children in a sexualized manner, as well as a record of several thousand Deutschmarks in funding paid directly from the Greens to the pedophilia group. So they were funding pedophiles. Disgusting. Again, the Green Party is feminist, very feminist. And they were funding pedophiles in the 1980s. Always remember that. Although the Green Party has tried to bury that particular painful part of its history, yet more of the German government's dabbling in pedophilia politics has recently come to light. In 2015, it was revealed that the Berlin city government had supported a program that placed homeless teenagers with convicted pedophiles. Wow, this is absolutely horrendous. Absolutely. This is like a horror movie. This experiment was the brainchild of Helmut Kendler, a sex researcher from Hannover University. Starting back in 1969, Kendler hoped to prove that wayward teenagers could be rehabilitated back into society by living with the pedophiles who would be sure to care well for them. Although Kendler himself admitted that this stemmed less from good-natured intentions than the fact that they, quote, had sexual relations with the teenagers, end quote. Absolutely disgusting, and it reveals the corruption in politics, that they approve of such a program and even fund it. Basic details such as how many children were handed over to pedophiles and how much funding the city provided are still unknown. The investigation is also being further impeded by the local government, which is withholding data and documents. So, yeah, this tragedy that happened, which was enabled by feminists, it is a rabbit hole where we don't even have the full information even today, right? So this, I mean, many of these conspiracy theorists, they will go crazy with QAnon conspiracy theories. But when it comes to actual pedophilia and corruption in the government that enables it, they are really overlooking that and not talking about it, actually. So they only talk about imagined corruption, but not actual corruption that actually happens. Now, here's the case of Barbara Allen. Barbara Allen is a columnist for The Observer. She has also written for NME, The Times, Mail on Sunday, LA, Marie Claire, Gracia, Loaded, GQ, and Mojo. And here's an opinion piece in The Guardian called "This Shameful Liaison Does Not Deserve Prison." Quote, looking at the case of Magdalene Martin, the 39-year-old RE teacher and mother of two, jailed for 32 months and placed on a sex offenders register for sleeping with a 15-year-old male pupil, do we seriously think that a female teacher sleeping with a male pupil is on par with a male teacher sleeping with a girl pupil? I don't. And neither, I would wager, would most 15-year-old boys, end quote. So this feminist writer who writes for multiple magazines, including The Guardian, she just whitewashed female predators towards male children. She just whitewashes this and says it's no big deal that women go around and sexually abuse male pupils. Absolutely disgusting. And it shows you the vile feminist thinking. They see male victims as not real victims, right? This is the sociopathic thinking. You have to understand these people are not normal in the head, okay? Who write stuff like this. And then there's the case of Kate Millett. She was an American feminist writer, educator, artist, and activist. She attended the University of Oxford and was the first American woman to be awarded a degree with first-class honors after studying at St. Hilda College, Oxford. She has been described as a seminal influence on second-wave feminism and is best known for her book Sexual Politics, which was based on her doctoral dissertation at Columbia University. Journalist Lisa Featherstone attributes the attainment of previously unimaginable legal abortion, greater professional equality between the sexes, and sexual freedom in part to Millett's efforts. As you can see, she was a big influence in the feminist movement, right? And what are her views on pedophilia? In an interview with Mark Biasius, Millett was sympathetic to the concept of intergenerational sex, describing age of consent laws as quote unquote very oppressive to gay male youth in particular, but repeatedly reminding the interviewer that the question cannot rest on sexual access of older men or women to children, but a rethinking of children's rights broadly understood. So that is the kind of manipulated tactics that she wanted to use here. She basically didn't want to come across as a pedophile, but she was framing the topic in terms of children's rights. So this is very vile, how she tries to frame this as a children's rights issue, even though they cannot consent. They don't have the capacity to consent. Millett added that, quote, one of children's essential rights is to express themselves sexually, probably primarily with each other, but with adults as well, end quote. That right there gives it away that she was a pedophile. That right there. This is disgusting. I cannot even, like, how is this even debatable? This is not debatable. This is just wrong what she's advocating here. And that, quote, sexual freedom of children is an important part of a sexual revolution. If you don't change the social condition of children, you still have an inescapable inequality, end quote. So when she means inequality, she's again framing this as essentially a feminist issue, right? So here you can see the feminist pedophile connection in the philosophy itself, basically. In this interview, Millett criticized those who wished to abolish age of consent laws, saying the issue was not focused on children's rights, but, quote, approached as the right of men to have sex with kids below the age of consent, end quote, and added that, quote, no mention is made of relationships between women and girls, end quote. Millett believes sexual access to children is only one part of a larger goal of liberating children from all forms of parental oppression. Disgusting how this is framed. This is disgusting how this whole issue is framed by Millett, right, as a children's rights issue. This is such vile nonsense. I cannot even imagine why such a disgusting woman, such a disgusting piece of shit, could even get awards and all these like academical respect that she received. Absolutely disgusting. It is very clear to me that feminism is full of pedophiles who normalize pedophilia and who promote it. But here's now the most damning evidence that I found for the widespreadness of pedophilia in the feminist movement. This is the most, this evidence just cannot be denied, right? Those are not, what I'm now giving you as evidence is not just some individual feminists who have supported and advocated for pedophilia, but also many feminist organizations apparently. Foucault's attitude to sex is alive and well in intersectional feminism. A detailed program for this ongoing project of dismantling was published recently by a women's rights caucus of over 200 intersexual feminist groups, LGBT plus campaigns, and trade unions around the world, as flagged by a women's human rights campaign. Of particular note is a line about how the campaign should encourage governments to eliminate laws limiting legal capacity of adolescents to provide consent to sex or sexual reproductive health services, end quote. So this is the proof that pedophilia is widespread in the feminist movement. This is the smoking gun right there. They all signed this document and promote a document. 200 intersectional feminist groups promote or want to encourage governments to eliminate laws limiting legal capacity of adolescents to provide consent to sex. This proves it right there that feminism is full of pedophilia. Right there. But we read on from this article. When we recall that the WHO defines as adolescent everyone in the 10th to 19th age bracket, it becomes clear that this inserts into an ostensibly intersectional feminist policy declaration as mainstream consensus feminist aims the goal of abolishing the age of consent for everyone over the age of 10. As you can see, intersectional feminist goal is abolishing age of consent. This is disgusting. This is criminal. Feminism is a criminal movement. And as you can see, they have widespread influence. Over 200 intersectional feminist groups. That this has been waved through by over 200 international NGOs and self-styled feminist campaigns speaks volumes about how widespread and entrenched the commitment is to destigmatizing all those quote-unquote bourgeois sexual norms whose existence is so inconvenient to Foucault. So perhaps despite posthumous quasi-cancellation, Foucault had the last laugh after all, thanks in part to his analysis of sexuality. Sexual autonomy for 10-year-olds is now well within the international progressive overtone window, end quote. So it is very clear from this evidence that over 200 intersectional feminist organizations are supporting a policy declaration that would effectively abolish age of consent. That proves it right there that feminism is full of pedophiles. What kind of evidence more do you want? Now, here's an article in The Guardian titled, "There is no war on men. We now know feminism is good for boys." Now, Laura Bates basically says in this article, and I'm probably going to do a full refutation of it someday later, that the typical feminist framing, right? Oh, feminism is not the problem, but toxic masculinity, blah blah blah, that bullshit, right? And she tries to prove that while citing this article, right? The State of UK Boys report released by Global Boyhood Initiative. So this is the report, right? And this work was part of a larger Global Boyhood Initiative, which was launched in 2020 and co-founded and co-coordinated by the Caring Foundation and Equimundo. Now, about Equimundo, I've already shown you in a teaser on my channel that they work together with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded circumcision programs, right? Which is precisely the opposite of helping boys. And now let's look at the Caring Foundation, right? This is also very interesting. So now the foundation comes from a French-based multinational corporation specializing in luxury goods called Caring. It owns the brands Balenciaga and other brands, but keep in mind Balenciaga. And again, the Caring Foundation is a foundation created and financed by Caring, right? And again, it supports women's rights initiatives worldwide, right? So it's a feminist foundation. The Caring Foundation is a feminist foundation, right? So this report and this Global Boyhood Initiative, which is co-founded and co-coordinated by the Caring Foundation, that is kind of like the tobacco industry publishing a health report or something like that. This is like total contrary, right? Total contradiction. But yeah, like I said, the Caring multinational corporation which created the Caring Foundation, it owns the brand Balenciaga. And guess what? Balenciaga has its own scandals with pedophilia. Exclusive. Balenciaga parent company Caring ignored an offer to partner with children's foundation set up by Gucci Harris a year before bondage bears and child porn scandal. The company has not issued any statement on the Balenciaga scandal involving the use of bondage-style bears in one photo shot and child porn legal documents in another. The second photo shot also featured a book by a Belgian artist whose work depicted naked, castrated toddlers. Disgusting. So let me get this straight. The Karen company owns Balenciaga, who was involved in this pedophilic scandal here, right? But they have a foundation, the Caring Foundation, and this foundation supposedly cares about boys, supposedly, and has this Global Boyhood initiated, co-founded and co-coordinated, and has this this report issued, full of feminist propaganda, by the way. And this is cited by the feminist article, Guardian article, by the feminist Laura Bates as evidence for her claims that there's supposedly no war on men and that supposedly feminism is good for boys. Really? Wow. So yeah, but like I said before, I think this here, right here, is the best evidence that feminism is rife with pedophilia. Okay? And again, I could probably even show you more. Like, this is probably the tip of the iceberg, to be honest. Like, the rabbit hole goes extremely deep with that subject, but I think I've shown you enough for this video. I think the feminist movement needs to be outlawed. It is criminal. It is full of pedophilia. Okay? Not to mention it is a man-hating, male-hating organization. It is a hate group, a hate movement. It has a fascist past, fascist history, racist history, terrorist history even, right? It is connected to imperialism, to homophobia and transphobia. It is also, as we have seen in this video, connected to pedophilia. Absolutely criminal and disgusting. And all these feminists who talk bad about the men's rights movement and supposedly fathers' rights activists supposedly want to shield father abusers of their children or something, whatever these feminists claim, or that supposedly parental alienation is some made-up thing to get abusers access to children or some bullshit. Meanwhile, the feminists have the pedophilia problem. So they're projecting. How dare the feminists, how dare these pieces of shit talk bad about the men's rights movement and say, oh, there are nefarious figures in the men's rights movement. Meanwhile, look at these figures in a feminist movement, right? Or look at the 200 intersectional feminist organizations that want to abolish age of consent. You disgusting, vile pieces of shit. You fucking hypocrites. Anyone who openly identifies as a feminist should be on an FBI watch list. These pieces of shit who say that the men's rights movement, that it needs to be monitored, right? And that it's such a great threat and all of that shit. Meanwhile, you have this bullshit going on with feminists supporting pedophilia. And it's rife. Are you fucking kidding me? You disgusting monsters. Everyone who identifies as a feminist, again, should be put on an FBI watch list. They should be a social pariah. They should be shamed publicly. They should be cancelled. They should be fired from their jobs. Every tactic that the feminists actually use against other people, against other men, should be used against them. Because it's actually deserved. It's actually deserved. How is this permissible? Why are feminists still in power, in the media, in politics? Why is someone like Germaine Greer, she is being awarded and all of that shit and interviewed? She should be behind bars. Jesus fucking Christ, man. So yeah, this, again, I'm pretty sure the rabbit hole with this topic goes a lot deeper, right? But again, people need to know, right? And yeah, again, it was very hard for me to make this video, to be honest, and to research this shit. But yeah, man. And again, all these conspiracy theorists with their like Pizzagate bullshit and all of that crap, right? They're chasing ghosts. Meanwhile, they don't point the fingers actually at real criminality, right? Always some imagined bullshit with these right-wing nutters, right? Who want to hijack actual issues. Because there is, as we can see, there is corruption, right? But when it's done by women, they are covering up their ears and eyes and are not saying anything. So yeah, talk to you later. Bye.